Quickly, before we start today's video, I just want to say a big shout out and thank you to King Porteous. You can follow King Porteous on Twitter and Instagram for doing the brand new SCW logo, as you can see on your screen right now. So big thank you to King Porteous for doing that. Fantastic. I personally love it, and I hope you guys here on SCW love it as well. Hi and welcome to SCW, the wrestling channel here on YouTube.com. Thank you for choosing the channel and choosing the video. Please subscribe right now. Leave any comments in the comment section. Please like and share the video as well. Ask SCW back once again, answering your questions in the wrestling community. If you've got a question and you would like to leave one for me here today, you can be involved on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, or even drop a comments here on YouTube. You should have everything coming up on your screen right now where you can follow me. Quickly, before we get into the first question this week, we've got some breaking news that has broken overnight for me and probably late Saturday, depending on where you are in the world. Drew Gulak, no longer with WWE. That's right, he has, some say released from his contract, some say that his contract has just expired. From reading into it, it looks like the terms couldn't be agreed on a new contract, which means Drew Gulak is free to wrestle anywhere he wants with immediate effect, which really took me by surprise because, I mean, Drew Gulak has been with Daniel Bryan this calendar year. You could argue that Drew Gulak has been doing not a lot for a couple of years. He really comes into the picture. His contract is coming up, and instead of extending it, he's on to pastures new. So it'll be interesting to see where Drew Gulak will go from here. I could see him definitely in a number of different companies. I think he would be quite welcome everywhere across the board. I think NWA would be a great shout for him. New Japan would work quite well. I'd like to see him in Impact Wrestling, and I mean, he could go to AEW as well, but for me, I'm not sure where he would fit in there at present, just because their roster seems quite full at the moment. I would say that AEW probably need to let a couple of people go with the amount of people that could be coming. I think there's more people that could fill those spots already. If you believe the rumours, the revival, maybe Zack Ryder going in, then you sort of think, well, I'm not sure where the spot is for Drew in AEW at the moment. But be interested to see. I'm a big fan of Drew Gulak, so I want to see where his next move is. He's a bit of a throwback. I love his in-ring technical style. I don't think there's as many technical wrestlers that you see like that today as Drew Gulak. So I want to see him on TV in some format. So hopefully we'll get that in the near future. But we'll go on to our first question this week, which is coming from James Steele. He actually goes straight to NXT for us this week. After Karrion Kross and Scarlett's debut last week, can you think of a better debut entrance? Do you see them being fast-tracked to the main roster? Great questions to kick us off on the Q&A this week. I think that it was amazing, that entrance. I mean, it just felt star. It felt like they were behind this guy from minute one. And to answer your question, I do actually think he will be fast-tracked. I just feel that he and Scarlett have a lot they can offer to the company. I think for the short term, NXT is a great home for them. But when we can get crowds back and we can get into the main roster where we can make a real name out of Karrion Kross, I think that he will probably go to the main roster. And I think right now he would be actually very well fitted in on SmackDown with that sort of bigger stars in the main event. But you could also argue that maybe Raw would be a good home for him as well, because he would be a genuine challenger for Drew McIntyre for the WWE Championship. So there are different options that you could do with him, but I certainly think his immediate future is NXT, and probably going to take him on Tommaso Ciampa. I think in the sort of short term after that attack. Could it be at the NXT takeover in your house? We'll have to wait and see. I love that name, by the way. Great that we've got the nostalgic 25 years ago in your house was around. Really enjoyed those pay-per-views back in the day. So good to see it. We've kind of got a bit of nostalgia with this NXT takeover. So if that match can be put for there, I would be really happy to see that. But as for better entrances, or as good of entrances, I mean, me and you actually covered the Fiend's entrance on an episode here of SCW back last summer. And that debut entrance really got the world talking. So I think that one would be up there. You can't beat for debuts in general Chris Jericho's debut to WWE back in the day, where he interrupted The Rock and he had the Millennium Countdown. That was very special back in the day, and that really put Jericho on a pedestal from minute one. So those two would be my standouts to say on par. You could argue Kane as well, coming in your house, ironically enough. Bad Blood. He came in to interfere with the Hell in a Cell match with Taker and Shawn Michaels. and just the dark eerie music from Kane at that point, and Vince McMahon shouting on the the commentary, "That's gotta be Kane." Those sort of moments feel quite iconic. So for me, those would be the three that would be on par. But definitely, I think that this entrance with Karrion Kross and Scarlett was special. I love the fact that Scarlett was actually voicing over the words, almost like into the camera to us at home, as almost as she was actually singing it. I don't just everything screamed star power about this. So yeah, I think that Karrion Kross, Scarlett Bordeaux, I see them on the main roster. If we can get to crowds before the end of the year, I would say perhaps by Royal Rumble time, I can see him there. Next question comes from Mike, Italian Habs Mike. A two-part question for us as well. First, how long should Asuka's title reign be, and how would you book an Asuka versus Kairi Sane feud? Very interesting stuff indeed. Well, first off, Asuka, at the moment, if you look at the championship reigns on Raw, she is the fourth women's champion in the last 2 years from the Raw side. Alexa Bliss, of course, won the Money in the Bank. If you classify it, remember that Asuka has just won the belt this week. Alexa Bliss lost that belt at SummerSlam that same year. So from SummerSlam, August 2018 to this past Monday was on Raw, which is, almost as good as 2 years, probably a year and 9 months. We've had two Raw Women's Champions in Ronda Rousey and Becky Lynch. I do feel that makes me wonder if the belt is not going to hot potato anytime soon. But I don't think we'll probably get as long a reign as Ronda and Becky. I don't see any records being broken here. But what I do say is that the Women's Championships on both sides seem to be given a lot of credibility. You look at Bayley, in the last 12 months, she's only not been the champion for 5 days. Now, you could argue her losing the belt was like a hot potato switch because it switched straight back. But if you look at the things of the bigger picture, the champions seem to be meaningful and they don't seem to give the belt up so easy. So I think for Asuka, she has got some form of lengthy reign in her, but I would say that I would be surprised if it's so out the calendar year. So at this particular moment, I'm going to say that minimum SummerSlam, but I'm going to go as far as perhaps Hell in a Cell sort of time. I think that could be around the period that maybe we could see a title change. So usually that pay-per-view is usually around October, so I would say that's probably a length, if I was saying now, that I could see it going till. She's got so many candidates that she could take on Raw as well. A lot of fresh matches there. Nia Jax seemed to be a program that was building towards. Shayna Baszler is an obvious one that we could perhaps see somewhere down the line. And I do think Shayna is the right person to actually beat Asuka for the Raw Women's Championship at this point. So I would book maybe the program of Nia first. Maybe you can have Bianca Belair manage to work her way into a title match. It would be nice to see her have that relevance on the Raw roster now that she's there. Liv Morgan, someone that could be in the picture as well. There is a number of candidates. Natalya. So, there's a lot of opponents that could feel almost fresh in a title run here. So, I don't see it being a quick run. But you mentioned Kairi Sane, and that's an interesting one because I do kind of feel that Asuka is going to kind of leave Kairi behind, and I think that makes an obvious route for a storyline here. Kairi is the person that's also turned babyface, it feels, in amongst these last few weeks because they need to fill out the numbers of faces and heels on Raw, and Asuka felt like the most likeable, and she's done such a great job during this pandemic time on these shows that she's almost become lovable for a lot of people watching at home with her charisma and, just the attitude that she brings. I think a lot of people are on side. Was a cool heel, a likable heel, and you could just switch that and turn that to be a babyface, and you've got that connect with the audience where you're good and you're doing those things that are kind of cool, and that takes you a long way. I think Asuka's finally found that groove on the main roster that we were looking for when she debuted all them years ago after she relinquished the NXT Women's Championship and had such a great run in NXT as well. With Kairi Sane, now she's going to be the person that is going to be almost the whipping person en route to the challengers for Asuka in the future. So if she takes on Nia Jax, she'll probably get destroyed again. Shayna Baszler's that kind of person that can do that to her as well. And it can be a jealousy factor where Asuka is able to prevail, left her behind, Kairi Sane sort of stuck and nowhere to go. The interesting thing there would be either would she cost Asuka the championship, or would she actually just try and make herself a challenger, attack Asuka, and maybe then WWE starts giving her the famous 4 or 5 week push until the title match, and then she probably loses. I do actually wonder how long Sane will actually be in WWE now going forward. I do feel that the Kabuki Warriors not that I feel they've run their course, but I think perhaps there is a chance that within WWE booking, it can have run its course, and that now Sane will be left on the sidelines, almost like heavy machinery. Tucker seems to be left now at home while Otis is carrying the Money in the Bank briefcase. I think this could be a similar case with Asuka with that championship. So it's a really easy made feud if they want to do it, and it'd be easy to put together. The question is, will WWE do that, or will they stick with the bigger matches or what they feel are currently the bigger stars booked on that brand? Because Kairi's saying right now, she's probably not had the best booking over the last recent months, despite the fact that she's been a part of the Good Bookie Warriors. Asuka has been designed as the star, in my opinion, and Sane has always been the one that seems to take the falls. And since the pandemic started and we've had these empty arena shows, Asuka has been the one that's been every week. Sane was not around for a while. It just, for me, I kind of feel that Sane has been left behind. Asuka's on that run. And yeah, you do wonder where it's going to lead going forward for the Kabuki Warriors. I think it could be almost done for them. Keeping on the Asuka thing for the first of 3 questions here from Noob and Co. Do you think Asuka winning the Raw Women's title at Money in the Bank was all Vince and Becky's doing? If the fans do come back to sports arenas, which WWE superstars get the loudest pop? And who's next to face Drew McIntyre for the WWE title? Well, first and foremost, that we're talking about Asuka before in the last question, we're continuing this question. I do think it's a lot to do with Vince McMahon. He's so into the Asuka character right now. It is a belief. I mean, a belief is that Vince is very high on Asuka and very high on Otis, so no surprises that both of them won the Money in the Bank. So I do think this is a lot of a Vince decision. Becky Lynch, in storyline terms, and has been massively in favour. She's even said on backstage previously that she's been pulling for Asuka, so there is no reason why Becky would not be involved in this and would want to see Asuka be the person to go over in this situation. And we've been talking a long time over this, over recent videos with Asuka, and saying how she hopefully could push her way back up into conversation. She's not just pushed herself into conversation, she's gone and taken the title. And as we said in the last question, I do feel there will be some form of lengthy reign here, at least for a few months. So it's going to be interesting to see where it's going to lead with Asuka. But I definitely think, yeah, it's a Vince-heavy decision, and I wouldn't be surprised if Becky Lynch was in and on it as well. As for when crowds come back into arenas, well, I mean, to be fair, I think that the crowds are going to go for everybody to a certain degree. I can see that fans will almost be like when you get these overseas shows. When it comes to the United Kingdom, for example, I feel that the UK crowds are some of the most passionate going. Yes, you can argue that some of the towns in the US are always passionate with WWE as well, but I feel like we're almost going to get as if it was back in like the 90s, people were cheering who you meant to cheer and people who you meant to boo. I'm sure there will be the in-betweens as well and that sort of stuff, but I feel that people will just not take it for granted, and that rather than thinking, oh, WWE's going to be back here in 2 months doing the show here, and I think everyone's going to kind of feel like, my God, it's back, we're here, we're together, let's make this. And I think we're going to be into some great audience participation shows when it comes back. For, individual superstars, Asuka has had a fantastic year so far. I would say that she's been one of the standouts in WWE this calendar year so far. Otis, I do think, has got a massive popularity factor. Fans were massively into what he was doing before the pandemic started. I do feel that Otis, he's not suffering without them, but I do think that as a fan that's watching at home, I think that he could do with people in the audience cheering him on. I think that it certainly would help continue that momentum that he's got. I think Drew McIntyre is definitely on the right path as well. He was getting fans involved with everything he was doing, and I think that he actually has got the biggest chance of being the company's big megastar going forward. So if they want to continue what they're doing, Drew McIntyre, I think it's a good thing. As discussed in previous videos, I think he has it. He's got a sense of being able to be himself in a lot of his promos, being able to feel that sense of realism as a champion. He's got the right look, he's got the right height, he's got a great finishing move that can be hit from an impact finishing move as well, which I think is very important. And I think if you look as well when he does like his 3, 2, 1, fans were getting involved in that with like the second and third week. He was also trying to get like the big woes as he gets his hands up in the air. And I think that with more weeks that he have the ability to do that, I think that fans will get more and more on board. And we have to remember as well that probably by the time we get fans back in arenas full time, Drew McIntyre will be champion for a good couple of months, and I think he would have had time to find his feet to become, that sort of like creditable champion that fans recognise and see, rather than just like, well, Drew's not been champion before. They kind of know what to expect. We've seen it from home, and like I say, with the fans being so passionate, I think they will really get on board with it, unless there is that fear that people maybe think he's been super booked like a Roman Reigns booking. But personally, I don't feel that so far. I don't think fans feel that either. So I think that he would be the one. He's actually mentioned the third question, and I think Lashley is going to be the next contender for the WWE Championship. Unfortunately for me, I would like to see Lashley booked over a number of months to be in this role, because Lashley's been booked amazing the last 2 weeks. It's the way that I've wanted Lashley to be booked for months, even years. Since his return to WWE, this is what I wanted to see from Lashley. I want to see him built to be the guy to take on Brock Lesnar and beat him, even have Paul Heyman turn on him. But it looks like he's got MVP in this corner, which is going to be a great mouthpiece. It's something Lashley has needed, and now I think as well, being looking so dominant in the ring since WrestleMania, particularly in the last couple of weeks with the Gauntlet match and the pay-per-view and this past week on Raw. I think he's been built as that next challenger, and we'll have to wait and see how it's going to work out. But I do think that Drew will put him to the side. I just hope that Lashley can sort of continue the momentum rather than just lose all the momentum put into him just to put Drew that further up. Drew needs to bring people with him if Drew is going to go solely to the top as the company guy. He needs to have one or two people on his level. Otherwise, he's just the guy, the only guy, and I think people then may start to get bored of it quite quickly. So, but anyway, as an answer to your question, I think Lashley is the guy that will be facing him next at Backlash. My good friend Mervin missed that 1925. Our next question for us right now. What gimmick in the modern era do you think will not stand the test of time? E.g., in the 80s, Demolition were two badass post-apocalyptic villains straight out of a Mad Max movie. In 2020, they're two weirdos in bondage gear. True, it's very true. Well, to answer this question, I do think there's a couple of examples that I could throw out there. I'm going to go for Impact Wrestling as the first one, because the guy's been sort of around for a while, but he's been brought back again recently, is the character Suicide. Now, he's sort of like in a mask, kind of all bodysuit, but I just feel the name Suicide, they ditched that name a few years ago because of the fact that I felt was that the name wasn't really friendly enough with the situation of people and mental health going on. So I do feel that that's a name that we are going to look back in 15, 20 years' time and think, God, what were they thinking there? So I think he's definitely one of them. One that really stands out for me comes from AEW, and it's kind of an obvious one here, I feel, when I say the Dark Order, purely from that mask perspective, the numbers, the kind of vibe that they've got going on. I kind of feel a bit of what the hell even now with this gimmick. I sort of have had times where I've sort of really struggled to follow and have a connection to the gimmick in general. It started with Evil Uno, at Double or Nothing nearly a year ago, and I don't know, I just not really felt with the Dark Order in any shape or form. I think it's a bit of a weird gimmick all round, and I do think that there is that potential that we can look back in even 10 years from now and think, what the hell was all that about? I just think it doesn't connect for me. Entire World Order with our next question for us right now. What a week it was for the Knockouts division. Give me your thoughts on the new Knockouts. We've got Tasha Steelz and Kimber Lee making their respective debuts. And can I fantasy book the next storyline for Jordynne Grace? Impact has the best women's division in wrestling, and it keeps improving. Well, that's the key, really, is that Impact Wrestling has got such a strong women's division. I think the most important part is that they keep freshening up in that places where they need to. I think we had a conversation on this a few weeks ago where we said that it needed just one or two names to be thrown in just to spice things up, freshen things up, and just give us that push it needs to continue to keep it on the level it's at and taking it towards that next level. I believe Su Yung at one point was out of contract, but she's definitely re-signed once again now. So we've definitely seen her back on TV for the last couple of weeks, and we will continue to do so as she's going to continue with Impact Wrestling. So we've got a lot of strong candidates there. Kylie Ray as well as a recent addition also. So yeah, I mean, when you look at it, Jordynne Grace has got a number of different potentials that she can face for the championship. As for the two women that you mentioned there, with Tasha Steelz, I mean, I saw her, an NWA appearance. I've been watching NWA this week, saw that, was impressed with that, was impressed as well with her Impact Wrestling debut as well. Kimber Lee, I mean, starting off there with a win over Havoc. I mean, Havoc's been always flirting around that sort of top 3 or 4 in the championship picture, so it makes you feel like she's got definitely a bright future ahead of her amongst Impact Wrestling. I do think it was too soon for them to be going for the championship, so if we were to actually do some fantasy booking, it's hard to really say. I mean, there's a number of different candidates you could go for. I think you could go for the traditional route for Kylie Ray, that she's picking up victory after victory after victory. Comes to the point that she's just got the champion left to go. But I want to do something a bit more fun than that. It feels just a bit of a boring one, that doesn't it? It's just throw Kylie Ray in there. She wins matches and then she gets a shot. We'll look at the dynamic we've had with Taya Valkyrie and Rosemary, and it just kind of feels like that dynamic twist that Rosemary's attention could eventually, where she sort of needs that dynamic with Taya. Them two have got a bit of chemistry in a weird way that it could lead to Rosemary getting the shot at Jordynne Grace, if maybe she has that, maybe, I don't know, sorry factor for Taya Valkyrie, that she's out of the championship picture, can't get back in it. Maybe it's a heel turn. Maybe it's something along that line, the dark realm, maybe the voices, maybe, those dark powers are telling her that she needs to do this for Taya. And from there you can roll that story on further. And it's been a long time since Rosemary has been in the championship picture that I can remember. I think she was in a Fatal 4-Way last year at, if I'm not mistaken, Slammiversary, I should say. I wouldn't say Slamboree for a minute. Looking at it, I do think that it's been a while since she's been in a competitive one-on-one rivalry for the championship. So, that would make new, fresh, interesting TV. If there is that dynamic that she does it for Taya, I think that it's a great way to keep Taya sort of involved in that higher part of the women's division as well, before she sort of carries on taking on different knockouts in the division. For me as well, someone I've not mentioned in this really, Kiera Hogan. We're starting to see some video packages of her, and I think it's time she starts getting a push. I want to see Kiera Hogan making a move, because there is that risk with all these new faces coming in that Kiera Hogan can be left towards the bottom of the division, and then she gets lost. And I don't want to see that for her. I think she's got a lot of talent. I think she's got a lot to give. So I would be interested in seeing her starting to get a bit of a push and a bit of a run towards the top of the card. I think that would be interesting to see. Got a bonus question this week from Ty Bordeaux as we go to our next one. Would it be a needle mover for Impact Wrestling if they were to bring back a big star such as Kurt Angle or Sting in an advisory on-screen role, maybe as a general manager or as a showrunner? Is that role even still valuable in modern wrestling? Cheers. Well, cheers to you for the bonus question. I think that's a great question, because, to be honest, there's no reason why you wouldn't want to bring Kurt Angle or Sting back. That brings eyes to your product, because they're legends. They mean something, and an on-roll sort of general manager kind of role can be done well if it's booked right. I think there is the argument. If we look at WWE, that if you look at NXT with William Regal, it's worked for years. He comes in when he needs to, and he's a bit part player. I think when you're the focal point of the whole show, everything runs through you, or if it's over-scripted, this, that, and the other, I think there is a chance that people disconnect from the role after a while, and it can get a bit boring. But I do think if these guys were interested in coming back, they have history, Impact Plus, especially at the point where we've got TNA as well going on with the championship at the minute, would be good to bring one of those, mega stars, Hall of Famers in to have their say with the championship, have that advisory role. It would be interesting to see. But the key is how they are used on television. And like I say, if they're used as William Regal was used on NXT, which is not too much, it's just enough, it's an interesting watch. And I think it's great for that role. And I think authority is good within wrestling. I find sometimes that matches can be just a bit chaotic without someone like a general manager kind of, steadying the ship, if you want. So I've always been a fan of the role. I think it can make sense. I think Drake Maverick was a great one as well back in the day for 205 Live, actually. And if he was, if he's not staying around, supposedly has been released, and if it's not a work, he would be great as chief of staff to come back and do that role once again with Impact. So, a big name like Kurt Angle or Sting would be awesome for Impact. They, will they want to come back when there's no fans? I think is another one of those big questions. But when fans are back and they were interested and they could get them in, it puts them further up the ladder, because, that's what makes companies big. You look at AEW, they bring in the legends when they need to, and it helps, just bring some nostalgic eyes to the product. Old Impact fans would love, TNA fans would love to see Angle or Sting there, and it may even, bring some different eyes that weren't watching before, because, fans of WWE are interested in knowing what Kurt Angle is doing. I know if I, for one, would watch wherever Kurt Angle went. If it was a company that I wasn't watching, I would turn and go, well, I'll give that a go, because Kurt Angle is on there, because I'm a big fan of Kurt and always have, and I think he's got a great role in what he does, whether it's personality in ring. Of course, in ring career may be finished, but he's so entertaining to watch. I think that he would be great on his role as an advisory character. So yeah, I think it could be decent depending on how it's done and if there would be interest. Last question this week coming from Pro Wrestling Ratings. How many wrestling t-shirts do you have? Honestly, not many. I have a DX t-shirt from back in the day. I was a big fan of DX at that point, and I mean, where I'm living, I'm not access to any shows. I could order stuff online, but I don't know. I've just never really been one big for wrestling t-shirts. So I don't know why that is. Maybe if I went to a show, I think I would make a conscientious effort to get a shirt that I think was maybe representative of that show, or maybe just, my favourite superstars around the time. I do think there is some cool merchandise out there, but I do think there's a lot of ones that don't, rock my boat either, if we're being brutally honest. But that's all from me anyway. Thank you for watching this time. This has been Ask SCW, episode 35. And like I said, if you've got a question, then drop it in the comments below, and I'll be back with you with a video tomorrow. Take care. Thank you for watching. I'll see you next time.